selling a second-hand car in the UK, there doesn't seem to be a concrete method to determine if it has been involved in an accident serious enough to write it off.
Well, those car check firms, HPI and My Car Check, both told us that they're working hard to improve the accuracy of their data, with HPI estimating that only around 0.1% of used cars could be affected by the sort of delays in updating the database that we highlighted in our film. HPI also claimed that its guarantee is industry-leading, but didn't comment on why car wasn't covered.
My Car Check, which gave Sarah's car the all-clear, told us it empathises with her frustrations, but reiterated that when she did that original check, the company had no record of the vehicle being declared a write-off. And it stuck to its guns on its guarantee too, saying that you have to claim within 12 months of the date that you do your check.
The DVLA, meanwhile, told us that it's insurers alone who are responsible for write-off data, but it's working with the Motor Industry Bureau to improve the way the insurance industry updates those records.
Well, joining me now is Ben Fletcher from the Motor Insurance Bureau, which does look after that database. Ben, start of a 10 for you. Nice, easy question. You have already told our programme in a statement to us that it turns out that your organisation knew, where Sarah's car is concerned, that it had been written off. But that information was not actually available on the site to the history checking company that did it. Shouldn't she get her £3,000 back?
So it's upsetting, clearly, when you hear of cases like Sarah's case. That I recognise that a vehicle after your house is the single biggest purchase you're ever likely to make, and therefore you want to try to understand as much as you can about the history of the car. The insurance industry, working with the Motor Insurers Bureau, make available the MIAFTA data. That data set is not complete, but we are working very hard to make that data available.
You just admitted the data is not complete. So again, simple question, is she going to get her money back? Yes or no?
So we don't make the data available to members of the public. When
But you make it available to the car checking agencies, don't you? And you've already said that you know that it's not necessarily up to date. Now, how difficult is it to get it up to date? Because when an insurance company has to pay out on a write-off, there's a certain amount of documentation. How difficult is it to press that send button in the age of computers to your database so that it's there immediately, as it is with the DVLA?
So the MIAFTA database, the insurance industry make the MIAFTA data available on it's a voluntary code of conduct. If the
yes,
industry...
it makes it available. Sorry, Ben, but you're not answering my question. It's available, but it's out of date. Why is it out of date if you know that there are car history checking companies who are trying to use that database to give their customers the confidence that the car they are buying has not been involved in a write-off? It means basically then that guarantee isn't worth the paper it's written on if your database is not up to date.
So the MIAFTA database has millions of vehicles on it. Over 1,600 new vehicles are updated on that database on a daily basis. There's probably just under 200,000 searches made on that database every single day. If we want this database to be entirely comprehensive, there are organisations beyond just insurers. The insurers are trying really hard to make this data available for the benefit of society. If we want, and the industry have been lobbying for, if we want a truly holistic solution that is comprehensive, that extends beyond insurers, there's lots of other organisations that could lead to a vehicle being damaged. This needs government intervention to compel people, because it's not just the insurance companies.
Very
insurance
briefly,
companies
government
are voluntarily...
intervention. Government intervention, that means the DVLA. Very briefly, how advanced are your talks with the DVLA to make their database available?
We're working really hard with the DVLA. We've got good discussions going. As I say, the database has millions of vehicles.
We know
it's
that.
Hundreds of thousands of transactions.
How advanced are you? When are we going to get it?
The problem is complex, and we're working through the issues. When you're talking about a database that's got millions of records and hundreds of thousands of searches...
You're still not answering my question, but thank you. You're just repeating what you've already told me. We need it done, and we need it done as quickly as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank
indeed.
you.
Well, you can bet that we'll be keeping an eye on that particular subject for sure.
Now, though, we've got some good news on a story that we first covered this time last year on our holiday series.
In our holiday series last year, we featured the story of Liz and Rob Ryan, who spent 2 years planning a big family trip to South Africa with the travel giant TUI. Now, before they were due to leave, Liz popped into her local TUI shop to ask a few final questions.
They said to her, is there anything additional we need for travel to South Africa? She looked us up on the computer and then she checked on the destination and said no, there was nothing else that was required.
But when the family tried to check in for their flights, they discovered that there was something they hadn't been told.
The check-in agent said, where's the birth certificate? And gestured towards Rebecca. And that was the first we knew that we were missing any sort of documentation.
To enter South Africa, parents travelling with children under 18 must show their child's full birth certificate at immigration. But not knowing about the rule, Rob and Liz had left 14-year-old Rebecca's birth certificate at home. Now, by the time they'd got it, the plane had departed. So the Ryans ended up shelling out almost £10,000 for new flights.
It was horrendous, I have to say. There was so much emotion running high.
When they got home from South Africa, the couple complained to TUI, but the company refused to give them any money back. But after we highlighted their plight, Liz and Rob didn't leave things there. They took TUI to court, arguing that the company hadn't given them adequate information about the rules for entering South Africa. The court agreed, ordering TUI to cover the costs of those additional flights and indeed the court costs. Liz told us she was understandably delighted. But just weeks after that, the South African government scrapped the rule that caused the problem in the first place, saying that all document checks would now be done at the same time as visa applications, which is great news if you're planning a family trip there this year. There's a twist of irony there that they scrapped the law just so soon after they had all that trouble. But there you go. This was a good end to the story.
Yeah, not much help to them, though, at the time, was it? And we're going to have lots more about your holiday woes tomorrow when travel expert Simon Calder will be here. We do love having him on the programme because he does his best to solve your problems on anything from flights to campsites. So if you've got a question for him, then do get in touch. There's the address again, ripoffbritain@bbc.co.uk. You know where to find us now. But at this point, Julia is tackling some of your problems with our experts.
Well, with me now is Lynn from Reading, who's hoping that our personal finance expert, Sarah Pennells, can help her with a problem that she's had with her credit card company. Lynn, you booked a holiday, and just before you went away, the company went bust. But you'd done all the right things, hadn't you?
Did it on a credit card.
Yeah, as you should, as we're always saying. And then you seemed to get your money back, and then they took it away without telling you. Sarah, that can't be right.
It sounds really unfair, doesn't it? As you say, we're always telling people to pay by credit card for things like holidays. And there are two different schemes that cover you. One is called chargeback, which is a voluntary scheme that the card providers have signed up to. And under that scheme, if they refund your money, they can basically put it in a holding account and they can take it back if the company disputes that you got the right to the refund. The other one is called Section 75, which we do mention a lot, and that is backed by law. And in that case, once you've got the money, it's yours. Now, what your credit card company should have done after they took the money back under chargeback is say, you actually have the right to complain under Section 75. They should have just processed it under Section 75 and given your money back that way. The good news is that they have decided, after we contacted them, to give Lynn her money back. There was just one extra thing to add, which is, unbeknown to Lynn, her holiday was actually protected by one of the holiday backing schemes. So, in fact, Lynn wouldn't have lost out anyway.
So, double good news, Lynn.
It is good.
Thanks, Sarah. And now to Martyn, who is our complaints guru. I think I can call you that. We get a lot of people saying that when they're trying to complain to a company, they end up talking to a machine, and they feel absolutely furious about that. Is this something that you think is a growing thing?
Well, depressingly it is, Julia, and don't we all just hate it, talking to machines when you actually want a real person to help you out? Now, the fact of the matter is, in the last year alone, we've seen around about 140 complaints at Resolver where people have been told that they can't even email in to a company anymore. They have to speak to a chatbot or go through a Q&A page. Often, if you get hold of a telephone number, they'll try not to take the complaint as well. So it's very frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, is there a way of bamboozling the chatbot and making it so cross that you end up with an actual person?
Well, there certainly is. Chatbots really aren't that technical when it comes down to it. So you just need to keep on asking for a real person or just keep pressing a button and eventually it will give up and drop you out. Now, the best thing to do is to go to the bottom of a website page and look for the Contact Us section, and there you'll find a telephone number usually and the head office address. But if firms keep withdrawing these email addresses, then we'll have to write letters in, like it's the 18th century, and that really is a sorry state of affairs. So we need to know about these firms that are making it hard to complain.
I mean, do you get the impression that as programmes like this encourage more and more people to actually be brave and complain, that the companies are doing their best to thwart them?
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's great that Rip Off Britain, after all of these years, has really empowered people to make more and more complaints. But what we're seeing is a trend of businesses trying to stop those complaints being registered for whatever reason, and that's really something that we need to stay on top of.
Yeah, keep complaining. Martyn, thank you. And now we've actually got some big news on a story that we've looked at before.
In our holiday series last year, we featured the story of the currency exchange that had left dozens of customers seriously out of pocket. Dance teacher Lucy Wilson from Leicester was one of a number of people who contacted us about Camden FX, which they'd used to change their holiday money online.
I spent just over £1,000 in order to get just over 1,100 euros.
But Lucy's euros never arrived.
The simplest way to describe how I feel is that I have literally been robbed in broad daylight. I transferred my money and basically they ran off with it. In broad daylight, it was gone.
Well, the good news is they didn't run too far. Since we broadcast that story last January, the man behind Camden FX, Wayne Watkins, has been brought to justice. It turns out Camden FX did used to be a successful company until Watkins took over the business from his father. In just 2 weeks, in June 2018, he stole around £90,000, the holiday money that 76 different customers, including Lucy, had trusted it to exchange. Well, the police caught up with Watkins, and at the Old Bailey last November, he was sentenced to 28 months in prison for fraud by false representation. And although Lucy never got her money back, at least there's some consolation from justice being done.
Lovely baby, but I have to say, at this point, we're almost out of time, but we'll quickly fire at our experts some of the questions that you've been kind enough to send in while we've been on air today. And the lovely Sarah gets the first one. Kate, and thank you for that, Kate. She emails, and this is interesting. She wants advice on a parking fine. She says she parked and paid for the car park, but when she went back to the car park itself, it was flooded, so she couldn't get her car out, and subsequently she got a fine, which seems really, talk about circumstances beyond our control. She appealed it, but that's been rejected. So is there anything now that you can do?
I mean, it seems crazy that you get a fine for not being able to get your own car because the car park is flooded. And I've looked online, and there are a couple of other organisations that say that actually you can appeal against a parking ticket in those circumstances. Private car parks, though, they're governed by 2 different organisations. They have their own codes of conduct. I'd suggest, rather than going back and trying to argue with them, contact her MP, because the way these private car parks are run is very much on the politicians' agenda at the moment. One part of the code of practice has just been beefed up, and they're looking at making further changes. I'd go to the MP, see what they can do, but also make sure that they know there's an issue.
Good advice. Now, Mike, this is one for you, Martyn. It's from Michael, who says his broadband provider has been overcharging him for almost a year. Every time he complains, they say they're going to fix it, but the next bill still includes extra charges. What can you do to get through to them?
Well, this is frankly outrageous, Angela. The fact of the matter is he's entitled to that money back, and because he complained over 8 weeks ago, he can automatically go to a free ombudsman service. They can look into it. He should also ask for interest on the money that he's not had the chance to use himself.
Good one.
And quickly, a lot of you really upset about the story about pets. Sarah emailed us to say her cat went missing in 2014. After years of searching, she discovered that he'd been living with another family for the last 5 years. Even though he'd been microchipped, no one had been in touch with her to say he'd been found.
So sad.
But I'm afraid on that sad note, that's where we have to leave it for today. We'll see you tomorrow at 9:15. Till then, goodbye.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.